Cronos, the new dawn, consumed my attention to the point where I played it 3 times, gathered every scrap of information about the game, and developed an incredibly bold and plausible theory, one you won't hear anywhere else, but which will definitely be confirmed in the sequel. Come back later to check. Today, I'll tell you everything about the world and story of the best survival horror of recent years. In the first part of the video, we'll go over the backstory. You'll hear about how the planet died before the events of the game. Then we'll dive into the full story itself and explain just what the hell was going on. And at the very end, a mind-blowing twist, so brace yourselves. 1949. Construction of the first municipal buildings of the new city of the future begins. The brightest minds of the nation gathered here to raise a radiant symbol of socialism's triumph. At the very heart of this city of the future rose the largest industrial complex in the country, the metallurgical plant New Dawn. It embodied both human ambition and collective effort. The steelworks soon became the pride of the Polish nation. The builders of this colossal project labored with unmatched zeal, creating a unique system of leadership that became an inspiration for all. These pioneers of labor, driven by purpose and extraordinary skill, became living embodiments of the socialist man, devoted to the cause, mighty in spirit, unwavering in loyalty to the collective. Modern homes were built, attracting bold young men and women from every corner of Poland. These pioneers came not only to build, but to create a new life in a society designed to meet every need of its citizens. New Dawn became more than just a city. It was a shining beacon of hope, where families could flourish and raise children in the true spirit of socialism. 1954. Newspaper excerpt. Just days after the wife of Joseph K. reported her husband missing, his body was found in the basement of his home. At first, it was believed he had died of natural causes, but strange marks around the victim's head suggest it may have been murder. From this moment onward, as the change drew nearer, a series of killings began in New Dawn. There was no pattern among the victims: men, women, the elderly, even children. What united them were the strange marks found on their heads. Police reports mention witnesses claiming to have seen mysterious figures clad in military gear resembling diving suits. Suspicions grew that they were agents of Western intelligence. In another undated newspaper clipping, there is a note titled, "The Well to Hell." Yet there are no references to the Kola super-deep borehole. Everything points instead to a mine located somewhere in Poland, most likely on the grounds of the New Dawn steelworks. The article reads, "During the most recent drilling project, an attempt to create the deepest borehole in history, under the supervision of a certain Mr. Azakov, a fatal accident occurred. When the drill reached a depth of just over 14 kilometers, it suddenly stopped and began to melt, triggering an explosion that killed most of those present. Although communist authorities try to deny the incident, a few surviving scientists speak of it openly. They also claim to have heard soul-rending screams of pain rising from the depths. Could it be that they truly drilled into a well to hell? There is no direct evidence that this mine unleashed what would later destroy humanity. Yet according to Chekhov's principle, every detail in a story must serve a purpose. Other clippings, audio recordings, and fragments in the game exist for a reason. I do not believe this newspaper article about a 14-kilometer deep hole to hell was included by accident. August 1981. An outbreak of an unknown disease occurs at the New Dawn steelworks. Workers are forbidden to leave the premises. The infected are isolated in a quarantine zone, overseen by the plant's medical staff and sanctioned by the military. The chief physician in the plant's quarantine zone is Dr. Dawid Zibert from Unity City Hospital. Unrest grows in the city as families demand to see their loved ones, but the authorities and military refuse to let anyone out of the plant. September 14, 1981. A local newspaper reporter sneaks into the plant. The workers accept him, realizing that press attention might help secure their freedom. They tell him that many of their comrades have mysteriously vanished. They believe the military has taken them down to the lower levels beneath the main furnace. In response to suspicion and mounting tension, the military allows the workers' leader, Gabriel Barika, to descend beneath the furnace, where he and his men believe their missing comrades are being held. 3 men descend. What they see is horrific. Missing steelworkers fuse together into a monstrous, twisted mass of flesh, as if stitched into one colossal biological horror. Standing amid this nightmare was a figure in steel armor. The figure spoke, saying only, "Bring her to me." The military captures this stranger and locks him in a cage. They cannot communicate with him, nor can they remove his armor. The figure shows no fear, no reaction to visual or auditory stimuli, no aggression. He insists on speaking only with one person, Dr. Weronika Kaminska of Unity Hospital. Gabriel Barica, traumatized by what he saw beneath the furnace and by his encounter with the armored stranger, falls into near madness. Even under torture, the military cannot extract a coherent explanation from him. At Dr. Ziebert's request, he is transferred to Unity Hospital. A radioisotope analysis of the stranger's armor reveals that its parts belong to different eras, though which ones cannot be identified. Attempts to replicate the equipment lead to technologies that seem to break the laws of physics, though they operate on simple electricity. October 12, 1981. Quarantine intensifies. Military forces encircle the plant with troops and heavy equipment. Workers are forbidden to leave their quarters. Rumors spread that something terrible was discovered below, perhaps the source of the infection that isolated the plant. It is said that Barica and his men descended beneath the furnace, saw something unspeakable, and then Barica vanished. The military begins Project Seraphim. All workers are herded into the quarantine zone. Officials announce that the infection has reached a critical level. With Moscow's approval, Dr. Kaminska is brought to the plant to establish contact with the armored stranger. At this stage, mention arises of another catastrophic undertaking, Project Twins. An unknown officer writes in his orders regarding the armored guest, "This thing is dangerous. It's a ticking time bomb. It's a monster. We cannot allow a repeat of the fate of Project Twins." This letter suggests that what is happening at the plant is not some ancient disease unleashed from a borehole, but rather the result of military experiments with biological weapons or genetic engineering. And it is not their first attempt. Communication with the stranger, who calls himself the Pioneer, proves difficult. His speech is broken, his thoughts fragmented. He mutters about a calling but cannot articulate its purpose. Is it to save humanity? To destroy it? He himself seems unsure. November 24th, 1981. Schools close. Students are transferred to home learning. Travel in and out of New Dawn is forbidden. The entire city is placed under quarantine. On the railways, generators are shut down. Workers and their families are not allowed to leave the city. High-ranking party members attempt to flee, but mobs attack them, preventing their escape. During one such incident, Minister Dobrucki is killed while trying to abscond with money and valuables. Trains no longer pass the steelworks. Rumors spread that the quarantine now covers the entire city. Food and medicine shortages begin. International Red Cross aid is refused. More and more citizens show symptoms of the first stage of infection: fever, chills, fainting, loss of appetite, numbness of the limbs, auditory hallucinations, sudden vision deterioration. Dr. David Ziebert admits all those suffering to Unity Hospital. Ziebert and his colleagues study the disease. Even isolated patients undergo transformations. Survivors of the early stages fuse together, forming metabiotes, living organisms composed of multiple beings. Skin growths secrete a substance acting as biological glue. Doctors have never seen anything like it. The illness defies classification. Early analyses suggested it was viral, but its behavior contradicts every standard. They cannot determine how it spreads, how it mutates. It is as though it comes from a world governed by different biological laws, or perhaps it was brought from there. Suspicion falls on the Pioneer, but Ziebert's samples reveal no trace of infection in him. Supplies to Unity Hospital are cut off. The church opens its doors to all. Believers, seeing what unfolds, proclaim the apocalypse near. There is no evidence of infection within the church. At Ziebert's request, Father Wojciech sneaks into the steelworks to hear workers' confessions. In secret, He smuggles the pioneer out, hiding him within the church. In doing so, Wojciech himself becomes infected. December 10th. Diary of a schoolboy. Some men came with trucks to the playground. Now there are piles of sacks filled with something that looks like sand. December 20th. My father fell ill. Workers of the plant issue demands: restore telephone communication. Allow all workers to contact their families at any time. Release Gabriel Barica. Reinstate him as shift leader. Keep workers constantly informed of their comrades' conditions. December 21st, 1981. Workers believe Gabriel Barica was killed by soldiers. They blame the military for the infection. An uprising begins at the steelworks. The situation spirals out of control when metamorphosed humans emerge from beneath the plant. Colonel Sebastian Zick orders his troops to open fire. The steelworks is overrun with mutants. Surviving soldiers attempt to retreat, but are executed by newly arrived units whose goal is total extermination of infected workers, rebelling civilians, and even loyal soldiers. The dead pile up so quickly that fuel for cremation runs out, as does fuel for bulldozers digging mass graves. Soon, even manual digging ceases. Corpses are simply left in the snow across the city. The military orders Zabert to clear the hospital of patients. He refuses, instead asking head nurse Magda Grünberg to move as many as possible into the hospital's basement, the safest place he can think of. He declares he will return to the steelworks to finish his work. He believes he can end the plague. Zabert releases all staff from duty, giving them the choice to leave or to remain with him and the patients. December 26th. Diary entry. Explosions echo across the city. People lie in the snow. December 28th. I hardly leave my room anymore. I see Mama only in the hallway. Her eyes are very red. She tells me not to go into Papa's room. December 31st. Mama's gone. Papa keeps calling for me. No further entries follow. Soldiers storm Unity Hospital, gunning down infected patients. Many already fused into metabiotes. The hospital becomes a nest of horror, yet the true nightmare unfolds below, in the basement, where Dr. Zabert and his most devoted colleagues attempt one final stand. In the darkness, they too fall victim to infection. When Father Wojciech succumbs to the disease, Sister Eliza assumes leadership of the parish. She preaches that the plague, the change, is God's will. The faithful, desperate for answers and comfort, open themselves fully to the disease, ceasing to resist it. This surrender fuses them into a vast meta-organism that, for reasons unknown, retains fragments of mind and even the ability to speak. Radio signals from the city grow rarer. Food, water, and fuel in New Dawn are exhausted. No answer ever comes. The Traveler, a figure in a suit resembling either a spacesuit or a deep-sea diving armor, a servant of the mysterious collective, awakens in a capsule to an announcement of the activation of Protocol Lazarus. After answering a series of strange questions posed by the automated system, she accepts her calling to collect the essences of chosen people and return them to the collective using a device known as the terminal. In her hands rests a relic capable of changing its form and structure, at times a firearm, at times a melee weapon. The Traveler's first task, assigned by the system, is to leave the capsule and seek out her predecessor. From the signs and posters around, it seems she is in Poland, or rather, in what once was that country. It quickly becomes obvious that the world around her is dead. All that remains are the ruins of human civilization. In a half-collapsed apartment block, she finds warnings. You'll know them by their eyes, infected inside, alongside trails of organic, pulsating mass that absorbs bodies into itself. Notes and leaflets reveal that some catastrophe occurred in 1981. In the city of New Dawn, the very place where the Traveler emerged from her capsule, an epidemic had broken out. The Traveler is attacked by a monstrous being, but survives. Audio logs left by her predecessor guide her path and describe these horrors. They are called orphans, monsters born from a terrifying process known as the change. She also learns the best way to prevent new orphans from consuming the bodies of others and growing stronger: fire. Outside, in the residential district, she encounters temporal anomalies and uses a relic module to harness them for her benefit. Soon she discovers the body of her predecessor, Traveler ND3500. On his corpse she finds a relic, an anchor seemingly intact. Extracting his data, she learns that he had been searching for one Edward Wisniewski in Sector D3, but never made it. According to her calling, the traveler continues the mission of her fallen companion. In a housing complex in Sector D3, she comes across a shining space-time anomaly crafted by another type of traveler known as the Pathfinders. This artificial anomaly is called a diving point, a rift that leads into the past. The building housing the diving point is twisted by gravitational distortions, anomalies born whenever travelers thin the fabric of reality through their actions. From notes found inside, the traveler learns that her target, Edward Wisniewski, lived in apartment 48. On her way there, she encounters a strange creature, a darker, more dangerous orphan. Her predecessor mentioned this beast too, believing it to be in a state of suppressed merging due to temporal distortion. At the rift, she fights the creature, exploiting its vulnerability to fire. During the battle, she hears a voice, perhaps the orphan's, or perhaps inside her own head. Synchronizing the temporal rift, the traveler is transported into the past, to a time before the world's destruction and before anomalies had ruined the building. Edward's apartment paints him as a conspiracy theorist. He believes in the rumors of travelers who allegedly appeared in various parts of New Dawn. She even finds surprisingly accurate drawings of them. To those around him, Edward is simply insane. The traveler learns that Edward and his companion Angela are hiding in a shelter nearby. In the hallway, the word disease is scrawled next to a door painted with the image of an orphan, a blind woman named Magda, her sight lost to the symptoms of the change, accuses Edward of abducting her daughter Angela for experiments, and begs the traveler to reunite the family. The shelter near the building is locked. Fighting through orphans, the traveler finds a key, opens the hideout door, and hears the hymn, Silent Night. Inside is Angela. The traveler first suspects Edward of holding her against her will, but this is not the case. Edward arrives, convinced that travelers are government agents. Angela, weary of his paranoia, turns away and runs. The traveler reveals to Edward why she has come. He is crucial, but she doesn't tell him exactly why. She activates a special mechanism on her arm, extracting Edward's essence and sealing it within her phylactery, the vessel that holds the souls of humans and of the traveler herself. An essence is, in truth, a person's mind, their way of thinking, their character, their soul. With the anchor fixed at the rift's far side, the traveler returns to her own time. Following coordinates, she reaches the sanctum, the terminal hidden in a subway station. Using its vast machinery, she initiates the process of ascension. In a grand hall, she places Edward's essence into the terminal. The terminal immerses the traveler's mind into the phylactery. In this surreal inner world, Edward does not understand what is happening. He protests, recalling that it all began at New Dawn's steel factory. Everything went to hell after the appearance of a mysterious guest, by which Edward means the traveler. But she has no idea what he's talking about. Edward accuses the travelers of being the source of the plague. Amid his panicked ramblings, another name escapes: Arthur Barrica. The ascension, meant to transfer Edward's essence into the collective, that enigmatic union of humanity's collective consciousness, is interrupted by a failure. When the traveler emerges from the trance, a figure appears before her, clad in armor much like her own, though battered and decorated with strange ornaments. He calls himself the Warden. He claims it is his duty to watch over travelers and their tools, aiding them in fulfilling their calling. Long ago, something disrupted the awakening process of the travelers. He has been alone for ages, doubting whether the collective would ever send anyone again. The warden says Edward's essence is secure, but the terminal requires repairs. He will handle them, while the traveler must head to Sector A11, to the steel factory, and extract the essence of her next target, Arthur Barrica. The path to the factory lies through a powerless metro station. The factory itself is a nightmare. Orphans wander everywhere, and the rooms are overgrown with horrifying biomass. The diving point at the factory is high above the roof, and to reach it the traveler must locate anti-gravity equipment left behind by her predecessors. In the plant's workshops, she discovers a quarantine zone packed with orphans behaving differently from those she met before. They sit on bunks or on the floor, staring blankly and not attacking, at least until the traveler decides to scavenge supplies scattered through the infirmary. In a laboratory where the early stages of infection had been studied, she finds the corpse of another fallen predecessor and recovers the anti-gravity module. With it, she can ascend to the rooftop, where the space-time rift gapes open. Using her anchor, she synchronizes the rift and is thrown back to the day when something terrible unfolded at the factory. She enters a chamber where an open cage stands at the center. Trails of blood lead to mutilated soldiers' corpses. On the workbench lies a plasma cutter, while on the walls words are written in blood. Don't let them merge. Deep within the factory, the traveler encounters Dr. Veronica Kaminska. She claims an outbreak has occurred. The woman insists she only wants to escape and that she is alone, but her radio betrays her. A man named Arthur calls for her, saying he is in the foreman's office, where he found the one they had been seeking. Veronica flees. The traveler suffers a phylactery malfunction that prevents her from carrying out her task for a while, but she soon recovers and heads toward the foreman's office. Along the way, she sees the factory collapsing into chaos. Explosions rumble everywhere, and rivers of infected pour forth from the depths. She has arrived on the very day the infection spiraled out of control and burst beyond the metallurgical plant. On the lower levels, the traveler faces the largest infected she has ever seen. A colossal nightmare that smashes through walls. A grueling, destructive battle follows, wrecking much of the facility, but at last the traveler triumphs and continues toward her target. In the foreman's office, Arthur opens fire on her, but her temporal armor easily shrugs off the bullets. His brother Gabriel Barrica is already infected, his body twisting, bones and joints warping at impossible angles, his face contorting in agony. Gabriel recognizes the traveler as though he has seen her before, whispering, "He has returned." The traveler declares Gabriel's fate is sealed. He will die, while Arthur has been chosen for ascension. But Arthur, like Edward before him, accuses the travelers of bringing the plague. He presses a revolver to his own head and threatens to kill himself unless the traveler saves Gabriel. She must choose whose essence to extract. She agrees to Arthur's demand and extracts Gabriel's essence. She returns to the terminal to begin Gabriel's ascension, but the machine is powerless and the warden is gone. She finds him at a piano, marveling that humans devote themselves to unnecessary things, music, theater, and insisting that such pursuits, though not vital to survival, are what truly make people human. He explains he shut the terminal down so it could rest. He sends the traveler to restore power. Restarting the system, she finally manages to connect to the terminal and speak with Gabriel's essence, though the machine remains unstable. Gabriel's words are chaotic, his thoughts fractured. Yet from his ramblings, the traveler learns that he once encountered another traveler. Soldiers had captured this mysterious figure at the factory, but when they could not extract anything from him, they brought in a certain Dr. David Siebert. Gabriel's essence is haunted by memories of brutal beatings at the factory. It was he who had discovered the traveler, and soldiers tortured him for information. But Gabriel was already traumatized by the horrors he had witnessed in the plant's basements, and likely infected. So the soldiers got nothing coherent from him. The only person he remembers fondly, Dr. Siebert, who showed him kindness and tried to help after he was infected. The terminal malfunctions again, ejecting the traveler into reality. All she gains from Gabriel is a name, Dr. David Siebert, at Unity Hospital in Sector A0. This sector is infamous as one of the most dangerous. Many travelers perished there, and one of her predecessors sealed it to protect others from certain death. But the traveler has no choice. The terminal has marked Dr. Siebert as her next target. Crossing ruined districts with anti-gravity jumps, she quickly realizes why so many predecessors fell in Sector A0. The approaches to the hospital swarm with powerful orphans. With great effort, she reaches the hospital's temporal rift and is hurled back to a time when the plague had already nearly annihilated New Dawn. The silence of the gloomy corridors is broken by Veronica's voice over the radio, calling for help. She is trapped in an elevator and begs for rescue. But the traveler remembers Veronica's betrayal and refuses to hurry, saying her true goal is Dr. Siebert, not Veronica. Negotiation begins. Veronica claims she knows Dr. Siebert's location and will help if the traveler frees her. The problem: the elevator shaft is choked with biomass. Burning it won't work. There's too much. Fortunately, Veronica knows what to do. After the outbreak, she worked on a counter-agent, a serum containing infected cells. If synthesized and injected into the biomass source within the hospital, it might free the elevator. She explains that the biomass doesn't grow randomly. It has a core, a vulnerable heart. The hospital itself seems torn between two temporal states, past and present, most vividly in the morgue, where the traveler is suddenly attacked by orphans from another time. Wandering the nightmarish corridors and cutting her way through infected, the traveler finds the reagents needed to synthesize the serum, then injects the substance into the colossal heart. When the biomass recedes from the elevator shaft, Veronica falls silent, ceasing all communication. The traveler descends into the underground complex. There, reality twists under another anomaly, and soon she is attacked by another black orphan, like the one she fought in the apartment block, but larger and deadlier. After a fierce, drawn-out battle, she destroys the creature and presses deeper into the basements, where she finds Veronica kneeling before a grotesque knot of biomass, fused with human bodies. Among them, judging by a nearby badge, Dr. David Siebert himself. Veronica explains that she and Siebert had been studying a captured traveler who called himself a pathfinder. Their plan was to smuggle him from the military's captivity at the steel factory into the hospital, where he might help them discover a cure. Veronica was meant to be the Pathfinder's target. He was supposed to extract her essence and ascend her through the terminal, but he refused to obey the will of the collective. In response, Veronica tried to help him. Unfortunately, she does not know what became of the Pathfinder. Dr. Siebert, however, surely knew. Yet, like the other doctors, all fanatically devoted to finding a cure, he too became infected and was absorbed into the biomass. The last hope is that some fragment of Siebert's essence remains within this monstrous growth. The traveler attempts to extract it. The anchor drags her out of the past, but as she begins her journey back to the terminal, her mind fails. She succeeds in pulling out Siebert's essence, but because he was fused with biomass, the phylactery is also flooded with the essences of many others consumed within the hospital. The vessel overflows. The essences clash violently for space, overwhelming both the traveler and each other. Plagued by savage hallucinations, she barely stumbles to the warden's refuge. He suppresses the raging essences, but warns her they are now part of her personality. Removing even one could shatter her mind. Only the terminal can safely purge them. But it remains damaged and requires further repair. Nevertheless, the traveler connects to the terminal in an attempt to speak with Siebert's essence. But due to the mixture of minds, Siebert speaks through the mouth of another, a woman consumed by the plague in the hospital basements. Angela. She is the very same Angela who once fled from the traveler when Edward Wisniewski's essence was extracted. Angela recognizes her. The conversation is as fractured as the previous ones, but the traveler manages to glean that the military had ordered the destruction of all patients in the hospital, infected and healthy alike. The same fate awaited the doctors. Siebert had tried to save Angela and the others but failed. He mentions his daughter, Eliza Siebert, now a prioress in an abbey. This becomes the traveler's next lead. The warden tells her he has studied the archives and discovered that the Pathfinder was no ordinary traveler. He truly marched at the forefront, paving the way for all others. He and those like him created temporal rifts using great relics. Other travelers then used these rifts to dive into the past. The warden suggests that if such a relic could be recovered, one capable of creating rifts, not just traversing them, it might be possible to repair the terminal, or even alter the course of time itself. Following a railway line, the traveler reaches the outskirts of New Dawn and arrives at the Church of the Last Days. An unknown voice calls out. She cannot tell where it comes from, not from the phylacteries, yet no living people remain in the world, and it sounds unmistakably human. The voice addresses her as a traveler, meaning its owner knows who she is. The voice accuses her of being yet another deceiver, another false prophet. In the catacombs, she sees hallucinations, people worshipping the disease as a divine gift. Entering the church, she beholds the corpse of the Pathfinder lying before the altar, and towering above him, a creature beyond description. Lovecraft might have tried to describe it in endless pages. I will not. The Church of the Last Days had become the stronghold of a new religion. Its adepts embraced the change and merged into a colossal monster. Its horror lay not in its appearance, but in the fact that it retained both consciousness and speech. At its core was Mother Eliza Zibert. The monster attacks, summoning hordes of orphans, but is ultimately slain, dying without fear, hopeful of reuniting with its god. The traveler approaches the Pathfinder's softened corpse. On his armor she finds an engraved serial number, the same as the warden's. In his databanks, she uncovers his final mission. Indeed, it had been Veronica Kaminska. She also plays his last message. The Pathfinder confesses he no longer believes in the calling or in the collective. He has come to love humanity, perfect in its imperfection. He refuses to feed the collective more human essences. He will not surrender Veronica, for she had seen not a mindless machine in service to an unseen collective, but a person. He claims he has found a way to halt both the extraction of essences and the awakening of travelers. His words are firm. Any future traveler who awakens and hears this message must not trust the collective. It is driven only by its hunger for human souls. The traveler returns to the station with the Pathfinder's body, but the warden is nowhere to be found. While searching for him, she hears Veronica's voice emerging from the phylactery. But this is impossible. She never extracted Veronica's essence. In the warden's lair, she finds dozens of dead travelers sealed in police cells, along with recordings. In them, the warden describes his attempts to implant the essence of a certain woman into them. Each time it failed. The woman's personality would collapse inward, turn aggressive, cower in fear, and refuse all contact, as though hiding. At last, the traveler opens a door marked Lazarus. Inside awaits horror. Veronica Kaminska's torso fused into a machine. The traveler rips her free and collapses as her phylactery malfunctions again. The warden bursts in, sees Veronica's remains, and flies into a rage. He reveals the grim truth. He used Protocol Lazarus to transplant Veronica's essence into the traveler's bodies. But because her soul was incomplete, it caused system failures and her refusal to accept this new existence. To resolve this, he disrupted the awakening algorithms and the terminal's operations, breaking the cycle of extractions and awakenings. The warden had used the traveler's behavioral matrices, injecting them with fragments of Veronica's essence and sending them to hunt down people connected to her. Edward Wisniewski, Arthur and Gabriel Barica, Dr. David Zibert. Extracting their essences was meant to restore Veronica's memory. Yes, the traveler is Veronica Kaminska, and the warden is the Pathfinder. But how could the Pathfinder have died at the church altar, yet now stand alive before her? If put briefly, Marty McFly freed Garrosh Hellscream and sent a Terminator back in time to Draenor to save James Cole from the Morlocks. If put in detail, listen further. The warden hoped he had finally achieved his goal, but instead of liberation from the will of the collective and gaining her own, the traveler chose to continue serving her calling. Yet even so, not all was lost. She had found the Pathfinder's body. and most importantly, his relic, a sickle capable not just of traveling through rifts, but of creating them at will. The Warden transfers his essence into his old body and tears open space and time with the sickle, hoping to set things right. He steps through the rift, and the traveler follows. They emerge at a clock tower, literally torn apart by space-time distortions. At its peak, the traveler encounters Veronica. She warns her that the Pathfinder is no friend. He is dangerous. His plan to save humanity, she insists, is a lie. He is obsessed with Veronica and wants to save only her. The traveler tells her that Veronica's fate is horrific. Veronica responds that he foretold this moment, that the traveler is a punisher sent by the collective, because the Pathfinder defied his calling. But the traveler rejects the accusation, renounces the collective, and declares, she is Veronica. Since the moment of her awakening, Veronica's essence has been within her. The Pathfinder appears and attacks, trying to kill the traveler. Despite his strength, he is defeated. And here the story splits into multiple endings. Ending 1, the worst for all. The traveler kills the Pathfinder, takes his sickle, and opens a rift for Veronica into the past, a time before the epidemic began. Perhaps she hopes this will give Veronica time to prevent it, but the plan fails. The next thing we see, Veronica, already showing symptoms of the disease, knocking on Edward Wisniewski's door, saying she does not want to be alone. It seems Cronos follows Novikov's self-consistency principle. Attempts to alter the past are doomed. Details may change, but the outcome remains. Humanity perishes in a global outbreak. In this ending, Veronica herself becomes patient zero. Yet in the original version of reality, she clearly was not. The true origin of the plague remains unknown. Ending 2, the cycle restarts. The traveler spares the Pathfinder and allows him and Veronica to return to the time from which she and he had come. But the plan collapses again. Wounded from battle, after passing through the rift, the Pathfinder's memory matrix crashes. The system restores his last backup. Dated December 21st, 1981, the day he died at the Church of the Last Days. He awakens with no memory of anything that followed, no meeting the traveler, no clock tower, nothing. Before him is Veronica, now afflicted by the disease. The only thing he can do is extract her essence, hoping to use it in the future. This ending restarts the events of the game. From here follows the Pathfinder's rebellion against the collective, the disruption of new travelers' awakening cycles, his hacking of the system, implanting fragments of Veronica's essence into travelers, and eventually awakening the traveler who will find him in his lair, repeating the path we ourselves just walked, until once more the cycle either resets or ends with Veronica sent back as patient zero. But there is a secret third ending available only in New Game Plus. The traveler spares the Pathfinder, but this time Veronica does not leave with him. Instead, she departs with the traveler into the future. What happens to Veronica here is uncertain. In this ending, an REV pod opens, and the traveler extends a hand to someone stepping out. We are not shown her condition. We do not even see who it is. But the traveler greets her as Veronica, and here lies the hidden detail many players missed. At the end of the game, during a phylactery malfunction, we see rapid flashes of fragmented visions, from past, present, and future, of people connected to Veronica. Among these frames is an image of Veronica herself, alive and healthy, in her jacket, pants, gloves, boots, and yes, even her own underwear. She stands before the door of this very capsule, the same one opening in the secret ending. So in the continuation, we may see Veronica Kaminska and the traveler together, striving to resurrect humanity. The past cannot be changed. Self-consistency ensures the plague always appears and wipes humanity out. But the future might yet be altered. Two Veronicas, perhaps, will find a way to create new people. The collective's technology still exists, the source of the travelers' bodies. They were blanks, vessels without essence. With these bodies and the implantation of souls, the two Veronicas could literally repopulate the planet with humans immune to the disease. No new orphans would appear, they cannot reproduce, and there would be no one left to infect. And so, perhaps 1,000 years later, on a foreign and frozen planet, a jade temple will rise into the clouds, built by the children of the two Victorias. In the end, I was left in awe of the game, its heavy, deliberate pace, perfect for survival horror, its balance, and its mysterious lore that sparks theories like this one. Be sure to watch the videos on screen and in the pinned comment. You'll find more fascinating content and help the channel grow. See you soon, and may all the creepy stuff pass you by.